we are live. Welcome to my video. This is going to be my thoughts on Andor, Season 2, Episode 1, 1 year later. Yeah, the episode, I'm thinking TV-14 or TVMA. This video will be rated TV-14. And yeah, like all other episodes of the show so far, yeah, up to and including this one, absolutely loved it. So glad this show is back. And it is back big time. Yeah, the video will have spoilers for the episode, as well as everything Star Wars leading up to it. And, yeah, the plan right now is that until I've done all of Season 2, I will do a video on an episode of the show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Yeah, let's dive right in. Okay, so, yeah, I really thought it worked well how it intercut, like, it sort of contrasts the Empire and the Rebels. You know, I appreciate it's also cutting to Mon Mothma and Basso and them, but yeah, it's very much like we're seeing how the rebellion is still in, you know, it's not quite so organized yet. Like, you have these groups that, you know, like, yeah, Cassian recognizes Maya's group, but he won't tell them which one he's with, because compartmentalization, the less, you know, the more people know a thing that has to be kept secret, the greater chance of someone spilling the beans. And yeah, you know, they didn't know, they accidentally shot someone who's on their own side, you know, because, well, he wasn't friendly. You know, he didn't, like, I'm not necessarily saying that it doesn't make any sense. Like, I get why things ended up the way it did, you know. But yeah, you know, at this point, still struggling with organization, at least on the ground. You know, in the higher echelons, you do have, you know, the Luthen and the others. You know, yeah, they're good at making plans and such, but then when you get to the actual situation, there might be some issues with communication. And then you have the Empire, which is still, you know, fat and satisfied, and they're talking about, you know, I mean, it's either displacement or genocide, and sometimes the two go together. So, you know, they can get access to, you know, what was it, energy. You know, they're talking about it like ordering a pizza or something. Like, I don't know. Anchovies, are we sure that that's an effective way for us to get all those living, sentient, you know, humans and humanoids out of the way so that we can steal their natural resources? I'm just not sure. And yeah, I wasn't entirely sure how early we were going to get Grenick, but he's right here in the season premiere. Love that for him and us. And yeah, fantastic season opener. Let's see, yeah, a lot of good stuff going on with, you know, the opening, the Imperial engineer, you know, she's defected. There's this thing of, like, on the one hand, she's happy about doing the right thing, but she also feels bad about the time she worked, you know, for the Empire. And I love how Cassian, like, in some ways here, he's very different from Season 1. And it has been, well, you know, it is indeed 1 year later. You know, he knows how to talk to her. I don't think this is the first time he's had to reassure a fresh-faced, wet-behind-the-ears defector. You know, which is, like, obviously, yeah, you really don't want the person saying, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I'm gonna go and tell someone what we're doing because I feel so bad. You know, reassurance is very, very necessary. And we know from Rogue One the movie, you know, if he has to kill someone that is working on his side, he's going to. That's certainly at this point in his overall character arc. But yeah, this thing of like, you know, okay, so what's the story? Oh, we're flirting. And later, you know, her supervisor's like, what was that? She said you're cute. I mean, yeah, the Diego Luna is handsome. And this thing of like, I was told not to look at you, and these various things, which again, you know, yeah, they are probably worried she's going to give an exact description of him to someone. So, yeah. Let's see. I will admit, at first I wasn't. I didn't love the scene of Cassian, you know, struggling with the controls and such. Like, it's. I will grant that it is very Star Wars, but in some ways it didn't feel very Andor. Like, Andor the show tends to avoid the somewhat lighter moments of Star Wars, you know, opting for focusing on the gritty and you know, exploration of fascism. You know, all these things were there right there in A New Hope, but yeah. But it led to the various issues once he lands and Porco is not there, because if the others could easily fly it, that's it, someone's flying it, you know. And they did get some great tension out of it, and that's also, I don't know if this was always the plan, or it's like in response to feedback on the first season, because the first season, some people really hated that it wasn't really until like season 3 that it started to take off, whereas this one, it's more like in media res, and no, there's a fairly big, certainly feels big action scene right here at the very start. So, yeah, and I do, yeah, I loved how tense that whole bit was. And I will acknowledge, you know, like, good guys struggling with their ships, that's always been part of Star Wars. Let's see. I think that might just about cover. So, let's see. I think I'll just briefly talk about all the stuff with Basso and Bix. That's it. You know, so yeah. I appreciate they are taking care of the droid, the one that thinks you can't be too emo. Emo, not emu. Crap. Anyway, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I appreciate the detail that she still has PTSD. You know, she has this nightmare of, you know, yeah, the guy coming in and yeah, very, very, yeah. Let's see, and then yeah, I like that. I like her playing matchmaker. Like, he was just telling me how thirsty he is. And yeah, the point about, you know, if they start checking IDs, we're in trouble. I love that this episode does assume that you've watched and remember season 1, because this episode would really get bogged down if every time a new plot thread was reintroduced, because that's something like American shows, you know, I don't know if I don't watch. There's a lot that I don't watch these days. I don't know if they do it so much anymore, but there was a while where they would do, you know, I love Prison Break. I will acknowledge, you know, that show definitely, there's a bunch of times where a character will say, so as we both know, you know, and yeah, are you sure you want to trust someone who did this, this, and this? You know, all that kind of stuff. This episode would really get annoying if they had to do that for every single one of these. And after all, you know, if you're watching this right now, if you're watching the show now, like, I can imagine later it'll come out on home media. Fairly confident it hasn't yet. if you're watching it right now, you're watching on Disney Plus. Disney Plus has a recap video. You know, it's not terribly long. You don't have to watch all of season 1 again, though I do recommend it. Let's see. I think that was what I want. Right, and B2 being like, you know, I was waiting. Well, here I am. I was waiting for Andor. Wow, what is he? Chopped basso? I think that is what there is for Bix and Basso. So, yeah, I'll just briefly talk on Mothma. I really appreciated the way there's this converging of, you know, it's like, what are Luthen and... I cannot keep track of all these character names. Let's see. I'll try real quick to see if I can find... And the answer is that I cannot. So I apologize to both actor and character because they're awesome, but Luthen and the woman who works with him, you know, this thing, you know, why are you here? And you also have Mon Mothma's was it cousin who was on, you know, the mission in season 1, and these various things, and you know, she's like, you know, I guess now you have another reason not to trust me or to doubt me, something like that, you know. So what's our cover? Is this the first time we meet? No, you've been to the store. And you know, the thing about, like, I guess she just is like, I forget what's the term, nervous drinker or something, you know, because yeah, she does seem to be pounding them down. I guess it's possible she has like a different, you know, she looks human, but in Star Wars you can't always be sure. Maybe her liver like just sucks it right out, so she doesn't actually get buzzed, or I don't know. But yeah, and I am never gonna tire of Luthen doing the act of, oh yeah, the big smile and such. I love the part where it's, oh yeah, you know, training, and but now we're being transferred. Transferred? Where are you being transferred? You know, because he's like, that's part of how he gets the information. He seems so friendly and trustworthy and harmless. You know, you wouldn't think, unless you've watched one of a number of Stellan Skarsgård movies I can mention, you wouldn't think that he's at all dangerous, you know. So it's very, very nicely done there. And let's see, yeah, Mon Mothma, I really like the, you know, her like, oh yeah, it's a party, and then her face gets like, oh crap, what is going on, you know, and walks up and asks, what are you doing here? Really, the bit with the two fathers talking, and you know, it's like, well, he's very weak. He's gonna either grow or he's gonna be led. Yeah. And there's so many, like, throughout history, that is how, you know, men have talked about marrying off their offspring. Just like this kind of resigned, yeah, you know, whatever. Yeah, and you know, Leda, it still really bugs me in a good way. I mean, the show is doing a good job. It's supposed to. This whole early wedding thing. Yeah. And, you know, I worry that it's probably too late for them to call it off now, and Leda is distressed, you know, noting he's a child. Which sadly, you know, there are a lot of, I hesitate to call them men, like boys in men's bodies who on their wedding day, yeah, they are like a child. Like, I forget exactly, there was like, was it a hashtag? Gosh, I feel so old. But there was a while where people were sharing videos of, yeah, grooms, yeah, saying or doing something incredibly immature on the wedding day, so yeah. Um, yeah, and the thing about, the hand, she keeps trying to hold his hand and he refuses. So yeah, like a a child, like a young boy who still thinks girls have cooties. So yeah, it's like a reverse Ivana sitch. I think that does bring us to just, yeah. So Cass and the, I forget the second word, but Maya's group, and yeah, I really appreciated that we, the audience, and Cass immediately learn this group does not have it all figured out yet. The way that, there's that thing about, there are 15 men here. You have to tell them there's 15 of us. He has to know we're surrounded. This thing of like, and Cass almost immediately starts taking advantage of that. And yeah, we find out, well, yeah, the leader was Maya. Nobody's sure who's second in command, which is such a rookie mistake to make. Just, no. You have to be clear on who's going to be in charge when the leader's away, or the mice will play. And we've seen this a number of times in these groups, because, a lot of rebellions, a lot of resistance people, they're kind of regular, just, yeah, they're civilians. They don't have military training. And I'm not, talking about, oh, the military's awesome, but, yeah. And when you don't have the requisite training, yeah, there's going to be these discussions about, well, I mean, I think I'm supposed to be in charge, and, yeah, at least one other person says, I don't remember that being discussed, and it is, I think they do a really great job of having it be, you can understand the different points of view, because, yeah, it is like, well, I mean, who is right and wrong here? Because, like, yeah, if if they take Cass, he can tell them how to fly, but he could also betray them. Who's going to be on the prototype, regardless of exactly whether Cass is there or not? And they, make the same mistake he did. They accidentally fire the gun. Or one of the guns, anyway. Oh, right, I just realized I forgot to mention. I am partway through watching Jesse Gender's video on this episode. Absolutely make sure to watch it. It's excellent, as always. Let's see. I think... Yeah, I quite appreciate it. When there's, like, just a few people there, he starts talking to, he's trying to divide and conquer. It's like, did you just draw the short straw? Oh, they don't think very highly of you, do they? You're starving, aren't you? And we have the thing about, 2 days without food. How did you know? Well, I was here 3 days ago, just... Because, yeah, understandably, they think he's Imperial. And throughout history, there have been a number of times where a spy has been mistaken by people on their own side, and sometimes it ended with the spy dying. Because, yeah, no, I saw it. Like, you're wearing their uniform, So, yeah. And it's also a problem because he can't really prove it, with Porco, maybe. It's possible there's something he could say to Maya, but he doesn't really trust these guys. And why would he? Because who even is the leader? They can't figure it out. And they're already, they're making really big mistakes. So he doesn't feel like he can tell them these, and it's also possible they wouldn't even believe him. Let's see. I think that does just about bring us to yeah, really tense ending. Also, he tries to make a run for it, and there's shooting, and yeah, that's how this group is so splintered that they actually, some of them shoot each other over insults. It's like, you're on this, the war's out there, man, out there. You're on the same side. You shouldn't be doing this. And again, it's 100% credible, and it also really effectively sets up. I feel like part of what the first season was about was getting Cassian into a position where he was going to help the Rebel Alliance. I'm not saying it was the only thing, but that was one thing, and that was set up very, very early on. We're told, no, he's a thief. He'll steal from the Empire, but he's not going to risk his neck to really stop them. He just wants to, put a finger in their eye, or what the, yeah. Part of what's going to be this season is getting the various groups to work together, I think, based on this episode. And the thing with Gorman is also going to be, yeah. Which I wonder if that's going to end with an explosion, someone saying, you were always an a-hole, Gorman. But crap, what was the other thing I wanted to say? There was another thing about the, in season 1, Saw Gerrera did point out, there are a lot of rebel groups, and, he doesn't think that they can work with a lot of them. Yeah, I think that does bring us to Imperial. I love the little, we just see, okay, so yeah, her name is, okay, I had it just a few seconds ago, I'll find, yeah, Dedra. And her boss, whose name escapes me, and, yeah, both at this table, and yeah, Krennic is like, talking about Dedra's past, and yeah, and yeah, the turns out the people of Gorman really do love the idea of spiders, and yeah, I forget, we might have been told before, but the fact that it's called the Ministry of Enlightenment, and then, yeah, it's propaganda. They're the propaganda ministry, and by calling it enlightenment, it's like, if you criticize them, you're saying, what, you don't want people to be enlightened? You want us in the Dark Ages? What is wrong with you? It's newspeak. Very, very nicely done. Very Republican. And what? I mean, like, the Star Wars American Republicans. Let's see. Yeah, and the various things they talked about, which you can understand why these are things that would stick. Oh, they're being difficult. Why don't they just do what the people in charge say? Why did someone have to die? And like, given that it's propaganda, I'm not 100% certain that anybody did die, because a lot of the time propagandists will, either nothing happened and they claim something did, or they did the wrong thing and then some. So it's possible they, I could see, the guy from the Empire came back. I'm sorry, they're not listening to me. He was executed for, failure to comply with orders, and then they said, oh, the Gormans killed him. And a lot of people are going to believe those in authority, even if the Gormans say, no, we didn't kill him. He was alive when we last saw him. But it also is this thing of, like, they're talking about displacement and/or genocide, and it's like, so that's okay because they killed one Imperial, like, obviously in real life nothing could justify displacement or genocide, but propaganda, if they plant that idea of, like, oh, you don't like those guys, there's something wrong with them, suddenly everything's, on the table. yeah, the Dedra, the character, it's this thing of like, you know, she's one of those villains we love to hate because she is so fiercely intelligent, she is so good at what she does, and so ruthless, and just, yeah, you know, Star Wars, right from the start, right from A New Hope, produced such great villains. And yeah, you know, she talks about propaganda isn't enough, we're gonna need an insurgency. And yeah, you know, there are a number of historical situations where, yeah, if there isn't strife from within, you might not be able to accomplish the situation without, you know. I thought it was very accurate to the Empire. The actual humanity of the Gormans is never addressed. Like, they literally just saw this video of, oh, look at all this, you know, we make these, we, you know, or our spiders make this cool stuff, and you can buy it right here. You know, it's this, like, what's it called again? It's like tourist, crap, what's it called? Yeah, it's a tourist information video kind of thing. Like, please come to our place. You can buy this really cool stuff, you know. And people are working hard, and they're very humanized. And they watch that, and Krennic's like, okay, enough of that. So, how do we get rid of these people? You know, okay. At first, he's like, do we need to get rid of these people? Is it possible to work around them? But at no point in the entire discussion does anyone say, and I get, you know, they wouldn't be in the room if they had, and I also appreciate the thing about, you know, okay, yeah, Tarkin will be told eventually, but that's for the Emperor to decide when, you know, but yeah, none of them ever say, is it necessary to, you know, much less, you know, nobody ever says it's not right for us to do this, though. It's that they're human beings, you know. Yeah, let's see, and yeah, you know, when it's said, oh yeah, like, if we, you know, or when we do this, it's gonna destroy the planet, it's gonna become unlivable, you know, nobody says, I mean, can't we find another planet, one that doesn't have Na'vi, I mean, Gormans? No, they're just like, okay, we gotta brainstorm how to get rid of them then. It's bureaucracy. It's a bureaucratic way to look at it. It's like, okay, so this is what we have, this is what we want, how do we get there from here, you know? Nobody thinks about how it will hurt these people, you know, and yeah, it's the banality of evil. It's fascism 101. It is this thing of like, no, look, it is a, we already know, everyone in this room already agrees, you know, we gotta get energy, you know, and energy independence, I think they call it, you know, which also I do really appreciate, because a lot of the worst things, you know, we human beings have ever done to each other were done in the name of getting some sort of resource, getting land, those sorts of things. And you know, I think a lot in Season 1 can be read as critical of America. You know, you had the prison labor, for example. And I appreciate it's also the case in other countries, but I mean, Tony Gilroy, you know, you may have heard of him. He wrote the Bourne trilogy. You know, he is, crap, it's been too long. No, I'm pretty sure. You know, he also wrote Michael Clayton, which, yes, I feel fairly confident saying, you know, that one is also critical of certain aspects of America, you know. But, yeah, here we again have this thing of, you know, terrible things done in the name of getting access to an energy source. And, yeah, You know, like, America has had several wars that were literally just about getting access to oil.